administrations, but a European-American principle since the mid-1970s, enshrined in the Helsinki Final Act, that security between states in Europe depends also on values within each state. That is an important principle. And I will admit, I am not much of a realist when it comes to the doctrine of realism. I do believe that values are important, and I think that there is an American tradition of resting our foreign policy on a foundation of values. So I can't tell you, Gienek, how this will turn out with the Russians, but we are right to try, and we are right to build a constructive agenda with our Russian colleagues, and we're quite committed to this effort. I think it has at least a chance of being successful.
Thank you, Dan. The issue of relations with Russia is very important, but the subject of this session is transatlantic relations and the role of the US in evolving global challenges. So from that point of view, allow me for a bit of a sarcastic remark that looking at the annual service, German Marshall Fund of the United States service on transatlantic relations, it was a shock to all of us that US in many countries became a rather important source of, to say the least, destabilization in the world, or to say bluntly, a threat to the world peace. I'm sure you've studied, you've seen the result. And so what are you going to do about it? Because the role of the US will remain in the international sphere, I do believe, indispensable. But the changes must be introduced.
Gienek, that is a fair question. Of course, I'm aware of the polling data from the German Marshall Fund, and let's be honest. I mean, we're among friends here. I'm aware of the skepticism, to put it mildly, that most European publics had about the Bush administration, and I'm very well aware of the strains in the transatlantic alliance that came about partly because of Iraq, but partly because of other factors. Whatever the faults were, they were not utterly one-sided, but there were some things that could have been done differently, certainly. Whatever those faults and whatever those problems, the Obama administration has made it clear that we want to re-engage with Europe, that we want to consult with Europe and rebuild that sense of common purpose and trust, and that will require listening more to our friends, taking account of their views, and rebuilding that sense of transatlantic community in a difficult world. Certainly the enthusiasm with which many Europeans have greeted this new American administration is very heartening. Our task now is to build on that and translate this into common purpose and a common agenda for our own collective efforts in the world. The world needs a transatlantic community that is acting together, and so does the United States. Frankly, the notion that the United States can act alone, or that we have legitimacy just because we are acting, is simply false. We need to act with Europe. We realize that, and I think the new administration is off to a very good start. So in the realm of samokritika, that's some. I'll be quite honest. We don't in life get to replay the tape. Gienek, we don't get second chances just the way we want, but we do have new opportunities, and this is one of them.
Now, knowing something about international relations, about the US of A, I have no doubt that when as you say in America, when the shit hit the fan, he will go alone again if Europeans don't bring their forces, like Vice President Biden have asked, and also President Obama said, this is a reciprocal arrangement. That means you European also help us, the US, to do the job. So it is not just your samokritika, it's our samokritika as well. But okay, let's move to the students here. I want, first of all, using again the American expression, to recognize John Jakub Budochowski, who with his friend from the Euro-Atlantic Association made all this possible with the partners. And you have the floor, and you may ask a question.
Mr. Secretary, I would like to come back to the reset button. You said that we should not fear it, but clearly you will have to make concessions to Russia. You will have to give to get something in return. Are you sure we should not fear those concessions? What might they be?
Again, Dan, Russia is our hobby, as you see.
I would not put the issue that way. Of course, I am not a Pole. I've merely lived in Poland. But I've lived in Poland long enough to know some of the history that lies behind your question and, frankly, your concern. But Americans have learned from history, and we have learned that it is wrong and unproductive to sacrifice other countries or our own principles on the altar of better relations with another great power. We don't do Yaltas, not anymore. It is not a question of concessions to Russia. It is a question of how we can build a common agenda. In arms control and in a treaty to replace the START treaty, which expires at the end of this year, there is not a question of concessions, but of finding a way forward to reduce the level of nuclear arms. It is not a question of recognizing a Russian sphere of influence. The Vice President spoke very clearly, and Secretary Clinton spoke very clearly, that we will not do so. We do want to work with the Russians to find areas of common ground, even where we disagree. For instance, Georgia. We will not recognize the Russian violation of Georgia's territorial integrity. We will continue to support the Georgian government and its sovereign right to find its own way in the world. If the Russians are interested in working with us and the European Union and the UN and the OSCE to help end the violence in Georgia, the raids and killings and kidnappings that are going on, we are prepared to work with them. But we are not going to do some deal with Russia over the heads of our friends and allies against their interests. I cannot imagine us doing so. We are going to be quite open and clear with our Polish friends about what we're doing. Foreign Minister Radek Sikorski has been to Washington, had a long meeting with Secretary Clinton, and they discussed Russia, they discussed Eurasia, they discussed energy. So we are going to stay very closely tied up with our Russian friends, but even more closely tied up with our Polish allies.
Thank you very much. And the second question comes from Paweł Osie, who is the Program Director of Euro-Atlantic Association. Paweł.
Dzień dobry, panie ambasadorze. To a topic that's obviously grabbing all the headlines, which is the financial crisis. In my organization's recent bureau meetings, we met with various government and non-government bodies in Washington the last 3 days. And the one overall writing theme was one of hope, dialogue of the new administration with its partners in the transatlantic region, speaking with Russia, etc., etc. However, as we know, the financial crisis deepens every day. And my question is, setting priorities, realistically, how will the new administration handle not only its domestic problems with the financial crisis, but also building and strengthening the transatlantic relation? Can it handle both? Is it going to be put on a back burner? Which one's going to take priority?
Short answer, please.
Obviously, the financial crisis and the global recession is a front burner issue. Even before President Clinton, even before President Obama, I've served many administrations. Even before President Obama goes to Europe and the NATO summit, he's going to go to London to the G20 financial meeting. This is a front burner issue. There is no way out of this